Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Really good to be back with everybody today. I've just had a blast since the new year has started with a lot of the guests that have been on. They have just been sharing tons of insights. And I hate saying like tips or tricks because I don't know that there are any tips or tricks that really exist. I think it's just good execution on great ideas. And today's guest, Chase Goodeill, is no stranger to some of these things. And he is going to share things as it relates to a tremendous amount of success that he has had with his inside sales team. And even doing deals and doing acquisitions, which he has had tons of success with. So I'm really, really excited to be able to have Chase on. I'll introduce him here in just a moment. This episode, as you all know by now, if you've listened to at least one or two or three, it's brought to you by my company, Moxie Pest Control. We're a national company. The branch that I run and am a big part of is out of Phoenix. And we have had a tremendous amount of success like many of you have had in 2022. We are so excited to be in the team for 2023. To be able to continue to grow and provide opportunities and better income and perks and things for not only our external customers, which are our customers, but our internal customers, which are every single one of our employees at Moxie. Part of the way that we have been doing, and Chase will teach us more about this, but part of the way that we've been growing the last several years has been by doing deals, by buying other pest control companies. We've done a handful of deals. We're looking for companies that are above the $500,000 mark. Residential general pest is our bread and butter. We are really, really, really good at that thing specifically. And so if you are in any of the markets that we are in, but specifically Phoenix, and you're looking to know what the next chapter of your life might look like, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you. You can reach out to me directly on my cell. It is 480-254-9730, or you can email me directly at clark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Chase and I, we actually had this podcast scheduled for last week, but he and I kind of hit it off so much that we just got to talking. And by the time it came to shoot it, we're like, hey, shoot, we've got 5 minutes left. I don't know that we can cram all of the things that we want to talk about into 5 minutes. And so it was really great to be able to visit with you, Chase, last week. And I'm excited to be able to have you on the show today. Chase Goodeill is the president of Goodeill Holdings and owner of Pest Control Consultants. His company owns, manages, and purchases pest control companies in Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And so I would imagine that just like I put the plug in for what we're doing in Phoenix and other markets that we're in, if you are in those areas, I'm sure that Chase, and we'll get your contact info and those things at the end, but would probably love to be able to visit with you. Chase has been in the business forever. He started at 16. When he got his driver's license, started with his dad. He might have even been in trucks before he had his driver's license. Who knows? Sometimes when companies are growing, you got to do what you got to do. So Chase, so good to have you here today. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Austin, for that introduction. I'm doing extremely well. I can't complain. I'm super excited for 2023. And I can't wait to get started, dive into some things here.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I mean, as we kind of get started, I know that first I love a little bit of the backstory, kind of Reader's Digest version of how you started maybe at 16 to how you got to where you are today. And I know I've got specific interest in the two topics that we'll look to cover as it relates to your inside sales team that is cranking out 2,500 plus new contracts a year, which is just phenomenal. And then your hot take, if you will, on acquisitions. As we've done a handful over the years in Phoenix and in other markets, we've certainly learned a lot and, are looking to be able to take kind of the knowledge that we gain from each deal forward. So it's a little bit smoother for everybody and a little bit more profitable for everybody and a good positive thing. But let's hear a little bit of the backstory first.
Sure. Thank you. And so I started with my dad when I was 16, like you mentioned, and absolutely right. At 15, I was riding with my dad.
I knew it.
Exterior homes while he would go do the inside. In the late 90s, early 2000s, indoor-outdoor pest control was a regular thing for monthly residential services, quarterly residential services. So I did all that, got married at 19 to my high school sweetheart, started working for my dad immediately. I saw as a young teenager the potential of the pest control industry, the recurring revenue model, the ability to go out and add new customers throughout the year was, I saw that upside there. So I went in with my dad for a couple of years, was in a truck like a lot of the listeners, servicing accounts. And 2-3 years in, my dad decided to take me out of the truck and asked me to start doing sales. And I said, Dad, how do you do sales? And he said, well, you get a phone book out and you just start calling on customers, or you write down a list of customers we don't have and just start calling on those commercial customers. And didn't give me much of a script, did not give me much of a manual, if you will. Just dove into it, went all in and started calling everybody I could. And found myself having some success pretty quickly, but there really isn't any magic formula to sales. As you know, persistence always wins. I find that if you can get a yes or a no from every customer you reach out to, you're going to find some success. Follow up is the holy grail of selling. And we sold, hundreds and hundreds of commercial accounts through just cold calling, prospecting, dropping in cold, finding out who the decision makers were, what pest control company they're currently using. And we were able to, present a proposal and switch over a lot of those accounts from corporate brands like Orkin, Terminex, Ecolab to more of our local, efficient, affordable service that we provided. So, that was the start of it for me. I started with the commercial pest control sales. Once I moved to a little bit bigger city, about an hour west of the city of Chicago, to expand our business. And out that direction, out east, we found the door-to-door was a big deal. People were coming through on Segways selling residential pest control door-to-door. Being from a smaller market, that wasn't something that people did. And I wish I would have found out about door-to-door sales when I was 21, because I would have been doing that probably more than commercial cold calling, though I found a lot of success in that as well. And so I started doing door-to-door and learned as much as I could about door-to-door sales and went out and would sell 200-300 accounts a summer, going out 2-3 nights a week from 4 p.m. to dark to service them myself the next morning as I was building a new route in a newer market. And, quickly we started hiring new technicians in this newer market. And now we're up to about 30 technicians in 3 states, Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. We're growing on average about 30 to 40% a year through as I mentioned, our inside sales team and our pursuit of acquisitions. And our acquisitions, you're like you said, you like 500K or more in recurring revenue or book of business. I'm more of the 250 to 500,000 a year, the smaller mom pas with 1 to 3 technicians. As we can, that's where we're at now. Someday I'd love to be doing $1 million deals, multi-million-dollar deals, but you don't start there overnight. And we've had success buying smaller local competitors, essentially monopolizing our markets. When they search pest control, there's our competitor that we own. There we are. And so you have, talk about inside sales, right? When you have multiple arms, that people are calling upon in your market, you can quickly, sell a lot of subscription-based customers and not pay nearly as much for those leads because you have, several Google business listings with several phone numbers. And like I mentioned, monopolizing your market through those acquisition of local competitors. So we found a lot of success in that. And we look forward to looking for more deals in the new year.
Very exciting. So your father early on perhaps saw something in you that maybe you didn't at the time. And I only draw that conclusion because of your question to him, Dad, how do you do sales? Did he see that early on or was that a need of the company? And it's like, hey, whether you know how to do it or not, or I know how to teach you or not, you're doing it because that's what the company needs. Or did you kind of have a knack for it and he saw that?
Well, I definitely was an ambitious young kid. Before I worked for my dad at 13, 14, 15, I was mowing lawns. I was going door to door, getting accounts. I hired my friends to mow the lawns while I would sell new customers. So I had that DNA. My grandpa was a big sales rep for Orkin in the 80s. In fact, he was the top salesman in termite pest control in Chicagoland, where it's winter and there's not a lot of termite pressure. So it's in our family line for sure. But my dad definitely saw something in me. He'll tell you, today, if you were to talk to him, he always tells people that he thought I would be doing what I was doing at at 28, at 22. So he saw it when I was a young fella. And it took me a few years to kind of figure out the sales side. But he believed in me. He gave me a shot. The pest control industry is an amazing vehicle to generate wealth. And I'm grateful for my dad for putting me in the position that I could take it, by the horn, if you will, the bull by its horn, and really grow this thing to what it is today.
So what would you say, over that course of, starting sales to where you are today? You probably between then and now worn a lot of different hats as it relates to managing the business and different departments inside of the business. What was like maybe a highlight over the last decade or decade and a half? What was, did you get to a certain like revenue amount, or did you have your best personal sales day, or what was a real, just like big achievement?
Yeah. So in terms of, when I started with my dad, we were probably doing $30,000 a year in revenue. Quick little backstory. My grandpa and my dad were in the industry. They built up a nice book of business in the late 90s and sold it to Terminix. So dad signed a non-compete, went to work as the branch manager with Terminix. I came, he got out of that deal, did not like working for the corporate pest control company. All of our customers were wanting him to start his own deal again. Waited for the non-compete to come up. It did. I was 15. And so I started working with him pretty quickly to get that going again. Obviously, the first $1 million in revenue in a book of business is the hardest. I feel like shortly after the first $1 million, the second $1 million rolls in, by understanding, systems and processes and figuring out what got you to the first $1 million mark. But for me personally, taking 80% of my time and energy and focusing that on the most important thing I could be doing, which was creating, sales, going after new customers, and really diving into the sales space. And I'm talking door to door. I'm talking cold calling, prospecting, inside sales, finding out what mystery shopping my competitors, understanding what my competitors are charging for the same services. Doing those things, and immersing myself in everything I could sales. And I didn't have any teacher or trainer or mentor. I got on the podcast, listened to a lot of Grant Cardone and The Psychology of Sales by, I think, Tracy, can't think of Tracy. The Psychology of Sales was a fantastic book. And Lenny Gray's.
It's Tracy Morgan.
Yep, I think so. Yep, and Lenny Gray, his door-to-door stuff, and door-to-door university, finding those resources online, and just being a passionate, hungry, and driven person, wanting to be very successful and wanted to be frank, I wanted to be wealthy. I had that desire, and I knew the pest control industry could do that for me if I went and put everything I could into it. So anybody can do what I've done, in terms of, building a successful pest control company. Getting new customers is going to be up to you. There's an old saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I'm not going to wake up one day and have $1 million branch. I'm going to have to go out and make it happen through my own efforts. And I think that's a key point for young entrepreneurs that are wanting to start their own pest control company, wondering where customers are going to come from. You're going to have to go out and get them. They're out there. There's no shortage of customers.
No, I appreciate that. Not only optimistic, but glass is half full. I've always looked at business and pest control specifically as like, look, there's literally a gold mine out there in whatever market. Doesn't matter how big, how small, how cold, how hot, whatever. And here's your hard hat. Here's your pick. Here's your flashlight. There's gold out there. Go get it. You're going to have to work hard for it. Some days you're going to have to work harder than others. But as you start to build that muscle memory and you get after it day in, day out, especially when you don't want to, because if you don't want to, that the people that are doing it with you or competing against you, they don't want to either. And so it's just really staying at it and keeping at it. You guys have, and I know that one of the things, Chase, that you feel like you guys have got a real knack for is your inside sales team. And you guys did 2,500 new contracts just last year. You got to tell us more about that. It sounds like you've had a lot of mentorship, if you will, as you've gone and sought it out as it relates to Grant Cardone and Cardone University and a lot of just other wonderful resources that are out there. But to tell us as much as you want to, or tell us as much as you can about this inside sales team and program and how you got there, because I mean, maybe you just thought this up a year ago and you guys went out there and did it and did 2,500 deals your first year, or maybe it's been a work in progress over several years. And so I would love to, and I think listeners would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're extremely fortunate to be in the position where we get leads organically from our listings. And, we have several GMB listings. We've been in the market for a while. We've got lots of reviews on Google. That's extremely important. But what we've done a few years ago is when someone calls our office, like a lot of pest control companies, it's going to have an introduction. If you're a new customer, press 1. If you're an existing, press 2. So we're going to send the new customer calls to people that we have trained to sell right over the phone. But we've also put in systems where, we're just asking for square footage. And based on that, like 0 to 3,000 square feet, we have an initial price of X and a recurring price of Y. And so 3 to 4,000, it's automatic. So our sales reps really just have to ask the right questions. They give them the price, they explain the value, they tell the customer, of course, everything we're going to be doing, such as clearing the eaves and de-webbing, removing wasp nests, treating 3 feet up the foundation, 3 feet out, asking probing questions like, I'm sure you've had the lady beetles in the fall, right? When they're calling for spiders, they have spiders, but we're basically getting them to admit that they need pest control and they need it year round. And that's the norm in our industry. It's the best practice. And so, we're just leading them right through the sales process and then sending them out a digital service agreement right over the phone, because our pricing is all on the back end, right? We've built that out. And then we ask the customer to sign that service agreement on the phone. We do require a credit card on file for payment. And then speed is the new big. When they call us, we're letting them know we can have a truck there within the hour. We don't want them to call our competitor to get a quote. We want them to know, hey, this is what we're going to charge. And by the way, I have a truck in your neighborhood today. I can actually be there today if that works for you. And oftentimes they had every intention to call other, pest control companies, but because I said I could get there now, they're like, oh, I was expecting somebody, next week. And so, we're doing a lot of same day services, and that has helped us in terms of getting people to sign up with us pretty quickly. And then we incentivize our sales reps. We have a base salary for our reps, and then we give them a commission on everything they sell up to, they're tiered. The first 50 grand, they get X amount of commission that they sell. The next 50 grand, they get a little bit better all the way on up. So we're really dialing in those reps to sell. They're extremely motivated to sell and schedule same day services. But, years ago, 10, 12, 15 years ago, when my dad had me as a 16-year-old, we weren't selling over the phone. We'd get a lead. I'd have to go out and look at it, talk to the homeowner, explain pricing, explain service. I had a 50-50 chance whether they were going to buy, right? I might have driven 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour just to give a quote. And that, if you're doing that today, I believe it's the wrong thing to be doing. I think you should be selling your pest control service over the phone, ask the right questions, give them a price, let them know that, you recommend your home protection plan, whatever you call your recurring service, and get them scheduled as quickly as possible. And if you start doing that, you're going to save a lot of time and you're going to add a lot of accounts, especially if you put yourself in a position to do same day services, for these new call-ins that are wanting service right now. And most of the time we found that, they don't know a lot about pest control. They don't know about the carpenter ants. They don't know about the spiders, the ants. They're going to follow your recommendation. Your recommendation should be to put them on a subscription. And let's be honest, tell me something that you can do one time in life, anything, and expect to get good results. Where you do it once. Nothing. You can't go to the gym once and be shredded. You can't read a podcast on becoming wealthy and be wealthy. You have to put that into, you have to do it on a regular basis. Pest control is no different. You have, doing it the right way is doing it, every 60 days in certain markets like Phoenix, every 90 days in Chicago it is perfect. And so that's going to provide the best overall experience for the customer. And most of the time the customer says that makes sense. And you're able to sell pretty quickly right over the phone.
Where, Chase, would you say most of the leads are coming from? And so I've heard as I've listened, as you've done deals, you have great Google listings, you have wonderful 5-star reviews, you're definitely leveraging multiple locations. And you don't need to necessarily say like lead sources, but are all 2,500 customers calling in? Are you setting your inside sales people loose on the phone book, if you will, as your dad did with you when you were, 19, 20, 21 years old? How are you drumming up the business? And then I'd also like to talk, if you can, about maybe spend, and maybe you're not spending anything on SEO or PPC or other types of things to make the phone ring, but maybe you are. And if you can share, we'd love to learn about that too.
Yeah, great question, Austin. So we spent $46,000 on Google Ads last year.
Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. That was where we were at. Our budget, I think, was 60 grand. We went under the budget, which is very small considering our top line revenue. But because we have been in our local markets for a long time, we've acquired a lot of our local competitors that had good GMB listings. I mentioned we have 8 to 12 arms flowing into our call center, if you will. And so 70% of the 2,500 plus sales we made in 22 were organic, meaning we didn't pay for those ads, we didn't pay for those leads. They came in through searching pest control. They called because our listing was there. And through our efforts in the acquisition game, one of the things I look for in acquisitions is how long has that business been in the market? What does their organic visibility look like? Assuming that I'm going to take over that GMB listing, right? Because I want as many leads coming in organically as possible. I mean, that's the hot sauce is organic leads. You're not paying, $200 or $100 per lead. However, out of that 46K that we spent on Google ads, we only got 350 leads from that. And out of the 350, we probably closed, 225, right? 50 to 60%, maybe 70% of those 350. So we use Google ads, we use Lobster Marketing. We're a field route user. Lobster's their sister company. They do our local SEO. I think Lobster Marketing does a fantastic job with local SEO, where I feel like, we're trying to figure out if spending $46,000 on 350 leads makes sense. We weren't not happy with that paid advertising. This year, we're looking into more local ad services. As I've heard that's the whole Google guarantee, as you know, Austin. And I've heard a lot of PCCs doing that, having success with local ad services. So we're going to gear more towards that for paid leads and continue to look for another, 1 to 2 pest control companies that are doing between $300,000 and $400,000 that we can, purchase and take over their listings and bring in more organic leads into our call center. So we can, it helps when you have the ability to sell in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. And when you're in Wisconsin, 2 out of the 3 top pest control companies in that market are my companies. In Iowa is the same way. In our local market in Iowa, 2 out of the 3 top companies on Google are mine. That's what I mean by monopolizing the market. We keep those GMB listings on Google, even though that company is now part of Pest Control Consultants, because people know those companies because they've been around for 30, 40 years in the market. So organic is definitely going to be the best way to build up your inside sales team, but you have to do that through having, lots of reviews on Google, having, blogging on Google, things like that, so you can rank a little higher. You get in the top 3, as you know, Austin. I mean, that's where you want to be. Top 3 on the Google search in your local market, and you'll win, and you'll put on hundreds of new customers by getting to that point. So that should certainly be a priority for young PCCs just starting out.
So when things chase, and unfortunately, I don't even know if we'll get to the acquisition bit, so we'll have to do a part 2. But so it's cooler now, right? I mean, our business is seasonal, if you will, and sometimes it does slow down. What are you doing to keep your inside sales people busy during this time of year? Are they helping on routes? Are they tidying up the office? Are they getting to all the things and that you couldn't get to in the summer? Or what is the I know you mentioned Grant Cardone, and he is big on follow up. I mean, has 100 days of follow up as it relates to text message. I mean, the hard, I don't even know what it's called, mail. Yeah, like actual physical mail, just all sorts of things like that. So how do you transition to maintain your talent and keep things rolling in and busy when the demand isn't quite what it is at the summertime?
So a lot of our inside sales reps are going to obviously, we may go from getting 50 to 100 new calls a day down to 6 new calls a day. So we don't have the lead flow. So what we start doing is we start creating a list within our office of all the commercial accounts we don't have that we would like to have. And then we start cold calling or stopping in and finding out who the decision maker is or who the contact would be at those locations. And we pursue the commercial pest control in the off season, if you will. And so, we send our sales reps, they go out and hand out cards, they shake hands with people, they try to generate some of their own leads like an outside sales rep would do. Obviously, we still have them taking our leads that come into our office. And if we get a new lead that comes in through an online form, we're going to hit that form probably 6 to 8 touches before we let that go. In terms of follow-up, leaving one voicemail, following up with a text, next day, leaving another, call. That's what I mean by touches. We want to touch that customer 6 to 7 times. And that's obviously extremely important in the off season because you're not getting near as many leads. But we switch gears to commercial pest control in the Chicagoland here where, it's cold, not a lot of need for residential onboarding new customers. We look to prospect and go after some of the commercial accounts in our respective markets that we would like to have.
If you Chase gained 2,500 customers as you guys did last year, what's the split between residential and commercial? And is that representative of your company, or does it just kind of depend on the year and companies that you've bought the last couple of years?
Yeah, the acquisition stuff, it depends on the book, right? Typically, we do buy a mixed bag of accounts, being that we're in the Midwest. We need that recurring revenue in the winter. So we need school districts, hospitals, daycares. We have to have those kind of accounts to keep the revenue going. Obviously, we're a quarterly, our model on the residential side is quarterly services. So we're probably 90% of those 2,500 are residential. In the last 5 years, we've really, when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to sell everything I could get my hands on. But commercial was what I was doing. I didn't know door to door was a thing. So, I was going after, people bought pest control from me or told me to never call them again. That's where, I had one guy that had 30 something Subway stores. And I followed him up relentlessly. He expressed interest every time I talked to him, but never wanted to allow me to close the deal. Finally, after probably months and months and months and months of follow-up, he told me that, okay, we'll go with you. I'm going to give you a shot. Otherwise, I'm going to have to hire an exterminator to exterminate you from bothering me so much. I'll never forget that, as a 26-year-old, because that's what it takes.
And you took it as the biggest compliment. That wasn't a jab or a slide at you. You're like, this is the kindest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Yeah, he was joking and we both laughed, of course. But, I say all that to say, you have to go get it, right? You have to be relentless with people. You have to be, Grant Cardone talks about being unreasonable. To the point, how many people do you know are going to follow up that aggressively? Not many, but that's what it takes sometimes to get deals done where, there's 30 something locations attached to the deal or, whatnot. So residential is definitely the future for us. If you were to ask me, Austin, if I could have 2,500 commercial accounts or 2,500 residential, the commercial book may generate more revenue, but it's also going to be more work. Those are problematic accounts, oftentimes a little bit more liability in those scenarios, whereas a residential customer, you can scale that much faster. You can hire somebody and train them within 2 weeks, get them out doing the work. It's probably more profitable in terms of the cost to service a residential account to the cost to service some commercial stuff. So we really are focused on a lot of growth on the residential space. And that's where we, sell most of our inside sales from. A lot of our commercial stuff, we're not going to sell those over the phone. We're going to send a service manager out to go look at and quote, figure out how many bait stations are needed to order, things like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And, as I stumbled upon some of Dan Gordon at PCO Bookkeepers information a few years ago, I was so excited to be able to find one of the case studies that he had produced because at the time we were doing deals and I was looking to be able to understand, hey, on average, if you will, what accounts are better? Because like you said, if you're doing deals, it's a mixed bag. There are very few pest companies, if you will, that are all residential or all industrial or all multifamily or all commercial. It's normally a little bit of all of it. And so as we were doing some of these deals and even before we had done them, we started doing residential general pest, but if you do good work, then the issue becomes, hey, you do my place. I'm a lawyer that owns a law firm. Could you do my law firm? Or, what I do professionally is run these restaurants. Could you do our restaurants? And so, you're making decisions to say yes or no, or if you say no, maybe you risk losing the general pest job, right, or client. And that's not a bad strategy. But one of the things years ago when I read some of Dan's stuff was understanding that, as you said, and no, Chase, hey, your residential customers, if they're priced right, they may be more profitable, but on average, and everyone can determine for themselves whether they're average and whatever. But your commercial customers are usually lasting longer, and so while you may be making a little bit less money per job, you can plan on them. Commercial clients aren't moving every couple of years like residential customers do. And so you may make some of that money up in the long run. And then, by the way, whether it relates to a recession or weather, depending on where you are geographically, it is a good thing to be able to have a mixed bag, so you can do a little bit more of a certain type of work, and not just your field people, but as it relates to your inside sales people. And so I think that those are incredible insights, and you can make money doing all of it. And just because you make more money doing one segment doesn't mean it's not important to be able to have, some others as well. Tell us, Chase, if you can, what does some of your follow-up look like? I'm a prospect, or I'm in one of your markets, right? I call the person that I talk to, they don't quite get it done. I'm not quite convinced. And so I tell them no, or I become a lost lead, or whatever it is you guys call it. Then what does the process look like? Because that's what I love about marketing and advertising is it never stops. Just because someone becomes a customer doesn't mean that they're always going to be a customer. And so the advertising and marketing starts far before someone becomes a paying customer, and it never ends. After they cancel or discontinue or whatever else, it continues. So what does some of that follow-up process look like, if you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. And a great point, Austin, on commercial accounts being stickier than residential accounts. And that's the main reason why I think pest control companies should have a commercial division or take on commercial accounts as well. So I'm glad you brought that up. As far as the follow-up, if I get told no, I'm not interested, I'm going to find out, hey, is there any particular reason why you don't, are you happy with your current provider? Are you under contract? A lot of times we're under contract. We can't do anything for 2 years. It's a year before we can make a switch. Obviously, I want to document that. And I ask them, is it okay if I circle back to you in October when your contract expires and we can maybe talk more then? My interest is to do two things. I want to help reduce some costs if I can, and I want to provide you guys with the very best local, reliable, and efficient service possible. And I've been able to do that with a lot of other accounts very similar to yours. So I find out when that contract expires. If I don't get a decision maker, if I'm cold calling and they don't want to give me a decision maker, then I'm going to go on and I'm going to stop in and see if I can find, hey, is the person who's in charge of the facility and grounds or head of environmental services, are they available? Well, no, they don't, but here's his card, and you can give him a call or shoot him an email. We can't, let you talk to him today. Well, great. Now I have a contact. Now I have a person I can call on until he tells me no. I have somebody I can email until they tell me no. And I'm going to circle back pretty regularly. I'm going to circle back once a week for a month. And I may not always leave voicemails. If I call somebody on Monday, leave a voicemail, and call again on Tuesday, probably not going to leave a voicemail on Tuesday. But I will try to, get them to answer me by being relentless with them. And once they do, you're, like I said, that's where, you're in a good position to get a yes or no. You're going to also in a good position to find out who they're using, maybe what they're paying, how long is their contract for, what do they like, what do they don't like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are they with their current service and what you think could be done to be, better. But a lot of it is just kind of, having a sales CRM, if you will, where you have your list. You understand, who are they currently using? To some extent, you may know what they're charging, when their contract is up. Those things are important. But my advice to young entrepreneurs in the home service industry would be, follow up until you get a yes or a no, and use email, use text, use, cold drop-ins, get creative. Creativity follows commitment, right? Or commitment follows creativity. I can't remember how that line goes, but I think it's creativity follows commitment, and so you're going to get creative when you're committed.
Well, and I would take that maybe a step farther to say, it's a yes or a no, but look, it's one of my favorite quotes in that yes always means yes and no always means maybe.
Yep.
And so, as it relates to either door to door or cold calling that have a tremendous amount of, by the percentages, failure, if you will, or rejection. I mean, if you're doing door to door cold calling and you make 100 calls and get 2 or 3 or 4 sales, I mean, you're in the top 1% of people that are doing that. And so to be successful, if you will, that means that you're getting 99, 98, 99 no's or voicemails that you're leaving, but you keep, again, pinging at that boulder or chopping at that tree, and it's going to fall one day. And normally it's going to fall your way. People appreciate if you're doing it in a professional manner, as you did with the gentleman that owned 30 subways. You may have been a pain for a while, but you can bet that went into some of his decision making. Hey, if this guy is this relentless with me in the sales process, I imagine their service has something behind it. I imagine this kid that's out here hustling is really proud of what he's doing and has a service or a good that he can stand behind. And so I so, Chase, and I want to give you the last word, but I so appreciate you sharing some of the things that you've shared with me. I've certainly learned a lot, and also with my audience. What is the best way? I'd love for you to give us maybe a parting thought. And then after that, what is the best way for people to continue the conversation if they would like to? Is email or LinkedIn, or what's the best way for them to do that with you if they'd like?
I think my parting thought, there's no greater time to start than right now. And I think people are always like, someday I'm going to start a business. Someday I'm going to start cold calling. Someday I'm going to do door to door. Someday I'm going to go all in on my health and fitness, right? Start today. Overnight success usually takes several years, but you have to have a vision. You have to be ambitious. Those things are often labeled as priceless, right? When somebody has that kind of vision and that kind of an ambition, you can do whatever you want to do, whatever you put your mind to. So the pest control industry is an amazing industry. That's your industry, my industry. I always tell people the pest control industry will make anybody a millionaire that wants to be a millionaire, because it's a vehicle that will get you to those things if you go all in on it and pursue it with everything you got, and leave everything out there on the field, if you will. So those are my kind of closing thoughts. I'm a big fan of this industry. I'm a big fan of Moxie Pest Control. Austin, obviously your guys' name is a national brand. It's very respectful what you guys are doing at Moxie. So that kudos to you guys there. And in terms of me, if anybody listens to this podcast and would love to reach out regarding inside sales or doing smaller acquisitions, or even, somebody who doesn't have any idea how door-to-door sales works, or did not grow up in that door-to-door space, but wants to see if they can do it, that's what I did. I talk to people from the door-to-door industry, and they're like, you didn't grow up in any of it, and you went out there and sold 200 accounts your first summer, or your first 90 days doing it. And I said, yeah. And they the first thing they asked me is, how did you do that? Like, who taught you? Like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. You can do it. Anybody, if I can do it, anybody can.
You can figure it out, and there's no excuses, right? I mean, we have the internet that's been around for a couple of years now. I mean, you can learn how to build a house if you know nothing about construction by watching YouTube videos. Like, it is all out there. It's all free.
No excuses, right? No excuses.
Yeah.
So, but you can find me on LinkedIn, Chase Goodeill on LinkedIn. My email is chasegoodeill@pccil.com. I can respond to that, but I think LinkedIn is probably the best. You shoot me a message, we can jump on a quick call, talk about some of these things in more depth. But one thing I love about this industry is and Austin, you could probably relate, is the people are willing to help people out. They're trying, versus me sharing everything I know about pest control and not sharing it with anybody. Our other folks in our industry, we're willing to share all of our secrets. I want other people to be successful doing pest control or doing any kind of business, because I love entrepreneurship. I love small business. And I think, people are willing to help, give nuggets, and different, information that we've experienced ourselves that may help, new startups or somebody that's considering going out on their own, that kind of thing.
Wonderful. Chase, thank you so much. Chase Goodeill, everybody. Check them out. Really glad to be able to have you on. Thank you for your time. Thank you all that are listening and will listen to this. They're dropping once a week right now. Lots of fantastic guests in the queue, and I'm excited for this one to drop and everybody to listen. Until next time, create a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.